Let's take a moment to think about gratitude and how grateful we are even whilst suffering with severe chronic OCD. Now, you're probably saying, Sam, what are you talking about? OCD suffering is really, really bad. Well, of course it is. I've been there. I've lived that, right? But let's look at what we're grateful for and how lucky we are to live in this day and age, in this generation where we can recover. We have the option to recover. We have the opportunity. We have the ability to recover. The way I look at gratitude, because when we're so consumed in our own head, it's easy to forget about gratitude. It's easy to forget how lucky we are. We all do it, we're human. I'm not thinking 24/7 how lucky I am, but when I take a step back, I can quickly realise how lucky I am. So let me give you some examples of what I just noticed. This is recently. This is literally a day of thinking about what I'm grateful for. Going about my day and all these, gratification came in during the day, okay? So I woke up this morning about 6 a.m. It was really cold. So within 5 seconds, I went on my phone, turned the heating on, right? Think how lucky we are, or I am, to be able to do that. Think how lucky I am. So I don't have to be in a freezing cold house. I can just pop the heating on with a matter of seconds, and in about half an hour, the house is warmed up, lovely, nice and toasty. Okay? Think of someone who's not so lucky. Think of someone who's homeless, having to spend the night in -5, -10 degrees, freezing cold, lucky to survive the night in some cases. Maybe they don't have a shelter to go to or to hide under. Okay, so it's easy to get up and moan of how cold it is, but think how lucky you are to be able to put a jumper on, to be able to go outside and put a coat on, a hat, a woolly hat and some gloves on, to be able to turn the heating on when you get home. Think how lucky you are to be able to do that. I also went to the pharmacy today to pick up a prescription. And I'm in the queue thinking, there's people moaning because they've got to wait a little while. There's usually a queue at a pharmacy. There's always people waiting. Maybe the staff don't really know where the medication is or who's prescribed to what. So there's usually a queue, right? But I'm there thinking, wow, how lucky it is that I can just go up, maybe I need some tablets, maybe I need some antibiotics to clear an illness, or maybe I'm just not feeling well, maybe I just need something with my teeth, things like that, right? And I can just go up, get in the queue to my local pharmacy and pick it up within about 10-15 minutes. Think how lucky that is. I mean, I often think of medication and drugs and all the things that have been invented to have that sudden change. Like, look at paracetamol or ibuprofen. So you're in pain and you can have that sudden pain relief within a couple of hours. Think how lucky we are to be able to have that, to live in an era where we had that. Think 100, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, well, that wouldn't have been lucky. If you got ill, your probably chance of you dying is very, very high. Whereas now you can go to the doctors and say the symptoms, say what's wrong with you, and you'll be prescribed something, usually after the first appointment, right? And off you go down the pharmacy to collect that. And I think how lucky we are, but people get so caught up on the trivialities of life, of the small issues, the small problems. Oh, I've got to wait 20 minutes for the queue. Oh, I've got to wait on the phone. Oh, I've got to pay for that prescription. But let's take a step back and think how lucky we are to be able to get that prescription in the first place. All right? I often think about going to the gym, right? And people moan of, it's too much effort. I can't bother to go to the gym. I can't bother to go for a run, right? But then if I'm ever thinking like that, which I don't, but if I ever thought like that in the past, I think how lucky I am to be able to exercise. I've got all my limbs. They all work. All my body parts work. The fact that I can actually run. The fact that I can walk. The fact that I can sit on a bike and ride it around. The fact that I can get in a pool and swim. Okay, because people aren't so lucky. Yes, of course, there's people who have died and not lucky at all to have anything. But people who are alive and that cannot run, that cannot swim, that cannot just walk without assistance. Okay, straight away you've got the gratitude shift. Now, this is so important to OCD recovery because when we're having a bad day, a setback, when we're triggered, like I've said, it's easy to get so fixated on how we feel right now in this current moment, which is understandable because I was like that, because it is very, very tough, right? I'm never downplaying that. But A little bit of gratitude gets you a long way, because you're thinking, right, I don't like feeling this way, but how lucky I am to be able to actually recover if I put in the work. How lucky I am that I can, although I'm feeling anxious, although I'm feeling chronic guilt, although I'm panicking, how lucky it is that I can go home to a nice warm house with food in the fridge. I can go and order a takeaway. I can go for a walk. I can go and watch telly. I can read a book. I can go on my phone. You know, the list goes on and on. It's endless list of what you can be grateful for. Even if you're living in very difficult circumstances, right? Very hard conditions. Even if that is the case, there will be things that you can be grateful for. Even someone in jail, for example, could find something to be grateful for. Even someone with cancer could find something to be grateful for, with stage 4 terminal cancer, from the lessons they've learned from that, how they see life for the time they're here, okay? How they can go out and live life. I'm not saying from a medical point of view, but how they view life. They can write, I'm going to be dead soon, so let's go and live life, okay? Now, what I say to people is that you don't need to have stage 4 terminal cancer to have that mindset, okay? You can be perfectly well and healthy and have that mindset, okay? Because we all die, okay? Sorry if that's news to you, but we all die. It's a matter of time. Maybe it's shorter than expected. Maybe I die tomorrow and it's sooner than expected. But maybe I die in 80 years and it's about standard. But the bottom line is we all die, okay? So don't wait until you feel a certain way. Don't wait until you recover from OCD to live life, okay? There are so many things that you can be grateful for. The fact that I'm sat here with the lights working. The fact that there's a phone here that's able to record me. The fact I've got this t-shirt on. The fact that I can, you know, there's food in the fridge. The fact that I'm quite hungry right now and I can stick a pizza in the oven. The fact I'm actually quite thirsty right now. Rather than having to walk 50 miles to get some water, to get some, you know, probably not even clean water, I can go to the tap and have a glass of water and then I'm no longer thirsty. Okay? This sounds quite basic. I get that. It does. When people say, oh, it's only gratitude, I'm starting with OCD. But these little subtle shifts in our mindset go a long, long way. These are the adopting gratitude is what I talk about. The change in perspectives, the change in beliefs, okay? This is a key component of doing that. Look at someone who's not so lucky. Look at someone who's died at a very young age and they would swap their life within a heartbeat with you suffering with chronic severe OCD. You might not see that, but it's true, okay? They would, because you're alive, there is hope, you can get better, you can overcome, you can learn tools to overcome anything in life, okay? When people think that the advice we give is just to overcome one sort of theme and then that's it. No, this is for any problem that can face you, because it's looking at being rational. We're slowing down the 0 to 100 catastrophizing. Okay, we're not being so black and white about things. We're being more flexible. We're having preferences and desires and goals, but no rigid demands, no rigid musts. Okay. No inflexible oughts and shoulds. That shouldn't happen. I must achieve this. I ought not have done that. Okay? That's what gets us into trouble. Okay? And that's with anything in life. Because things aren't going to go your way in life. They're not. Because if you think they are, you can strive for things to go your way. But if you're holding a demand that things should go your way, you are leaving the door wide open for emotional turmoil. Because what happens when things don't go your way? What happens when people treat you inconsiderately? What happens when people treat you unfairly? When people don't care how you feel? What happens then? Okay, then you go down the route of depression, anger, rage, self-pity, anxiety, guilt, panic, and so on. Okay, so the point I made earlier is that you're human, so you're not going to feel like there's gratitude in every situation, okay? But you can get into that mindset of thinking about gratitude. It's like seeing your brain as a muscle that you're training that. Because let's say, you know, you lose your job when you're pissed off, right? You're pissed off because you feel like you were treated unfairly. It's easy to get really angry and complain and whine and vent and moan. It's easy to do that because we're human. But then I take a step back and think, okay, how lucky I was to have that job. How lucky I was I can just go and get another job within a space of a couple of days or a couple of weeks, right? How lucky it is that even if I couldn't get a job, I'd be supported financially, okay? I'm talking sort of baseline income from the government. The fact that you live in a situation where that could happen, right? I'm not talking about the extremes. I'm talking about someone from the UK, right? I'm talking about that you can go home and maybe study something. Maybe you have support from family. Maybe you have, someone who could support you financially, for example. Okay, I'm not saying this is everyone's situations, but there's always something that you can look to be grateful for, even when it feels like our life is hopeless, helpless, feels like we're getting nowhere. I speak to people in very, very difficult situations, very low situations, things like, wow, that's a challenge. That's a real sort of low place to be in. Okay. And it's going to take time to get out of that situation, which is what we'll help with one-to-ones and webinars. But even in that situation, there is something to be grateful for. And that is usually just being alive. Now, of course, people will say, yeah, but Sam, when I'm in that kind of circumstance, why do I want to be alive? And I say, well, there's hope. Yes, you're in pain. Yes, you're struggling. Yes, you're suffering. But there is hope. Because when you're dead, there is no hope. You're gone, you're forgotten about. Your name might be mentioned a few hundred times and then you're gone, forgotten about. How often do you mention someone's name who's been dead for 20 years? Okay, you might mention them on their anniversary when they died. Okay, but you're not talking about them every day. So what I'm saying is that the fact you're still alive watching this video, because as far as I'm aware, no one dead is watching this video. I don't know that, but they could be. But you're alive, you're here, you're standing. You might be sitting, but you can do something about your current situation, your current perspective, okay? No matter how low or defeated you feel, no matter how down you feel, you have the chance to get better, even if you feel like there is no chance for you at all, even if you feel like you're treatment resistant, even if it feels like you're the exception, yours is different, yours is real, you have the chance to get better. Those little realizations throughout time are massive. Because it's so easy to just go, no, I'm different. This one's real. Normally, this used to happen with me when I had a big trigger. Like I felt like I was getting somewhere, maybe a glimpse of freedom, feeling okay for a couple of days, and then boom, have some of that. Slap back down to, chronic guilt from the minute I woke up in the morning to the minute I went to bed. And thinking, oh, fuck gratitude, forget about that. This is where I am today. Couldn't be worse. At my worst, I would have traded. This is no exaggeration, by the way. If you caught me on a really bad day and you offered me, then someone shook their hand out and said, Sam, I'll give you the choice. You can get rid of this OCD. You can get rid of this relevant false memory in the past. You can get rid of this chronic guilt and this panic if I took both your legs, right? And I'd have gone, oh, you know what? I'll shake your hand. Right? If they said, Sam, I'll give you cancer, your survival rate is probably 30%, 20%, but that means your OCD is gone. Would you shake my hand? Yeah? I'd have been the first one in line shaking your hand. All right? That's how it can feel. Because when you've been suffering a long time, when you feel like there is no way out, it's easy to think like that. But we have to take it one day at a time in that moment. There is no quick fix. There's no quick sentence you can say to yourself. I can't suddenly do a dance and then it's all gone. All right? I wish I could do that, but I can't dance anyway. I can give you advice. I can guide you. I can take steps with you towards OCD recovery and freedom. But it takes time. It takes persistence. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Remember that. All right? So it's these little subtle realizations. I remember at times thinking, when really triggered, I'm thinking, what's the point of putting in recovery room? What's the point? I could go through the discomfort now, but what's the point? I'm not going to get better. What's the point? I was just so fixated on what's the point. People used to get quite annoyed with me, like people in the groups when I was new into the journey. Rob, Amy, my partner, get quite frustrated with me saying, Sam, stop saying what's the point, because you cannot answer everything. What's the point? Okay. Well, even if there's no point, why don't you give it your best shot? Okay. I hear it all the time. Sam, what's the point? It don't matter, because we get so caught up on how we feel today. How you're feeling right now does not indicate forever. Now remember, that's not a reassurance perspective, that is truth, okay? Because if I said to you, yeah, you're going to be stuck like this forever, although we have to make peace with that, it does not instill hope, okay? It's easy just to, you can read one of the books on reading this and go, yeah, fuck this, I'm going to feel like this forever, okay? Making peace that you might helps with fear of fear, don't get me wrong, of course it does. But it's clinging on to the hope that you might one day get better, okay? That you might wake up tomorrow and not feel like this. If you're so convinced you're going to feel like this forever, then that's why the hope goes. That is why we give up so easily. We don't want to do that, okay? Because there is so much hope. Look at all the people on the team. Look at the people who do the videos. Look at all the people in the WhatsApps who are doing really, really well. Okay? There is so much hope. But that is one, you know, when I was really stuck with chronic guilt, like severe real event, false memory, OCD was finding anything in the past that could latch you, and then boom, you know, you can never ever get better. You're going to feel like this forever. No matter what, you're going to have to, you know, live with this chronic guilt forever. To a point where I thought the only way of relief was handing myself into the police and go, yeah, just put me in jail for 40 years. That's the only way I can get better. Nonsense, okay? The only thing keeping you stuck now is your current perspective, your current belief system, your current view, which can be changed. But I get that feeling of, you know, what, I'm going to say what's the point again, but that's how it feels. Why would I put in the work now? Why would I go through this discomfort? Why would I do the exposures? Why would I read the books on a reading list? Why would I write my beliefs down on paper? Why would I try and go towards worst case scenario if I'm never going to get better? I said that many, many times. But looking back now, this is what I'd say to myself. I'd go, Sam, I put an arm around me and say, Sam, right? You feel right now that you're never going to get better. You feel like, what's the point? But even if there's no point, even if you're never going to get better, even if you're stuck like this forever, why don't you try and put the work in? Because you are never going to feel ready. You are never going to feel the optimum moment to put the work in. You're not going to wake up one day and go, right, today is the day I put in the work. It is not going to happen because usually OCD beats us down to a point where you're never going to feel that motivation. You're never going to feel dedicated or committed to recovery. You're not, okay? So this is why we have to go for it regardless of OCD doubting everything. You're going to doubt everything. You are. You're going to doubt me. You're going to doubt the tools. You're going to doubt Albert Ellis. You're going to doubt you've got OCD. That's how it works, right? It's a doubting disorder. Hence why hundreds of years ago it was called the doubting disease, for that exact reason. So I cannot highlight and say enough that you have to at least try regardless of how you feel. As soon as you started doubting everything, as soon as you felt crap, as soon as you felt anxious, if you chucked away the books, chucked away disputing, stopped doing exposures, then you're not going to get anywhere, okay? You might think I'm being quite mean, but I'm being very realistic here, because you're not going to recover by just sacking it all off after, you know, feeling crap for a couple of days, okay? Or crap for years, all right? It takes change. It takes belief change and behavioural change. It takes a new way of thinking. We're lucky enough to be a species that can think about how we think. Other animals aren't so lucky. We're very intelligent, smart animals. We can take a step back and think about how we perceive things. That is huge, right? We don't have to think, you know, we don't have to be really irrational about things just because of how society. We don't have to follow the crowd just because of what society believes. The biggest change and the biggest turning point for me was when I thought, right, I can figure things out for myself. Of course, guidance, of course, support, of course, advice. But when you start figuring things out for yourself, you start thinking about how you're thinking. You start thinking about things and, you know, your own rigid way of thinking, your demands and your musts and your things that are keeping you stuck, right? Ultimately, it's the things that's keeping you stuck. So when I look back at my current beliefs, when I look back at my old beliefs, it's plain as day as why I was stuck. But when I was in that moment, I just couldn't see what was keeping me stuck. And this is why belief change takes a little while, okay, along with behavioural change. All right, they come hand in hand. All right, so let me give you an example of what I mean by that, looking back at my old thinking. So I used to say things like this. If I did this thing in the past, if I did an immoral act, if I did a wrong or bad act, that means I should never, ever be let off the hook. That means I should be killed. That means I should be punished forever. That means I should never, ever feel any pleasure or happiness again. But there's no wonder OCD latched to real event false memory OCD. There's no wonder it latched to the guilt related to boo themes. Okay? So I started looking at that belief and started changing that. Started adjusting that to the unconditional acceptance that even if I did this thing in the past, this bad, immoral, wrong thing in the past, how I could accept myself as a valuable, fallible human who can make mistakes, who can do a bad act, okay? Remember, that's not agreement with the act. Acceptance is an agreement. I can strongly regret an act. I can strongly see an act as bad, as a horrible act, as an act I don't wish to commit again, but I do not attach myself and my meaning to that act. That is the biggest change for chronic guilt. So many people come in and say to me, Sam, how do I get rid of this chronic guilt feeling? I'm no doctor. I can't give you a magic pill and it's all gone, okay? It's all in the mind and how we think about things, all right? When I started to see that and realise that, that is when the cog started to turn. That is when the guilt started to fade because, right, no matter what's happened in the past, no matter what thoughts I'm getting, no matter what intrusive, taboo-related thoughts I'm getting, it is my perception, it is my relationship with the thought, with that thing in the past that's keeping me stuck, okay? And we're in control of how we think, okay? I'm not talking about if you get a brick thrown at your head and then you suddenly move, but that's a survival instinct you, so you don't want to change that. But when we're chronically guilty and anxious and panicking, in the meantime, you have to let that play out. It's not a quick fix. So you can't just suddenly get rid of the guilt, but we start chipping away at why we're feeling that chronic guilt. You're not born with chronic guilt. You know, chronic guilt serves no purpose, right? You're not thinking straight with chronic guilt. If you're constantly calling yourself an evil monster, you're not going to think straight and you're not going to be motivated to change that because you'll be, before you even think about changing that, you'll feel so guilty and so down that, you know, all the effort and energy is thinking about that rather than actually trying to change. Whereas you feel healthfully regrettable about an act, but you still don't write yourself off as a human, you can look to change bad behaviour. You can look to not do that bad behaviour again. Okay, you can look to perform better in the future. Okay, those are very important points when it comes to chronic guilt. I was talking about gratitude. I've now gone on to chronic guilt, but you know, I talk and talk and talk, and then, you know, covering lots of key points. This is what I like to do rather than just staying on one thing. I talk about all different things and intricacies of OCD suffering and how to get better. But I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, I don't want to go on too long. I will leave it at that. I hope this video has been very helpful. If you are interested in our one-to-one services, any webinars, please email phil@ocdrecovery.com. The WhatsApp link should be in the description of this video. And if you have liked this video, please leave a like and we'll speak again. Bye-bye.